Kilthara moved through the darkness of space like death itself. His ship was black metal and sharp edges, built for one purpose: hunting. Behind him, 11 other Vorthak warriors waited in their attack pods. Each one was 8 feet tall with thick armored skin and claws that could cut through steel. They had hunted across a dozen worlds. Humans were just another prey species to them. "The mining station is ahead," Kilthara said into his communicator. His voice was deep and rough, like grinding stone. "Intelligence says 43 humans. Work there. Mostly miners and engineers. No military." The other hunters made excited growling sounds. Humans were easy targets. They were small and soft with no natural weapons. They died quickly when cornered. Some of the younger hunters had never killed a human before. Today would be their first taste. Kilthara looked at the space station through his ship's window. It was a simple design, built around a large asteroid. Metal corridors connected different sections like the web of a spider. Lights blinked along the outside, showing that people were still inside. "Remember the rules," Kilthara told his pack. "Take the adults alive if possible. The young ones are more valuable. Human offspring bring good prices in the fighting pits." The Vorthak had learned that humans would surrender completely if their children were threatened. It was a weakness that made hunting them simple. Other species fought harder when cornered, but humans would give up everything to protect their young. Kim Day sat in the engineering control room, watching 12 heat signatures approach his station. He was 35 years old, with steady hands and a calm mind. He had built most of the station's systems himself. Now he would use them as weapons. "All civilians to safe rooms," he said quietly into his communicator. "Begin protocol, Shepard." On the other side of the station, his wife, Park Hai, was already moving their 3-year-old daughter, Kim So, to the secure nursery section. Other families were doing the same thing, but they were not running in panic. They moved with purpose, following a plan they had practiced many times. Day's fingers moved across his control panel. He began shutting down sections of the station one by one. To anyone watching from outside, it would look like the humans were powering down their systems in surrender, but Day was really preparing a trap. The Vorthak ships reached the station's docking bay. Kilthara was the first to step out, his claws clicking on the metal floor. The air smelled of humans, sweet and soft, unlike the strong scent of proper predators. It should have excited him. Instead, something felt wrong. The corridor was too quiet. When Vorthak raided other places, there was always noise. Screaming, running footsteps, the sound of prey trying to hide. Here there was only the soft hum of the station's life support systems. "Spread out," Kilthara ordered. "Find the humans." His hunters moved through the corridors like shadows. They were trained killers, each one capable of taking down multiple prey. But as they searched, they found empty rooms and abandoned workstations. Meals were half finished on tables. Computer screens still showed active work files. It was like the humans had simply vanished. One of the younger hunters, Grackmore, stopped at an intersection. "Captain," he called, "I smell young ones. This way." Kilthara followed the scent trail. It led deeper into the station, toward what his ship's scans had identified as living quarters. The smell grew stronger as they moved. Yes, there were definitely human offspring nearby, but still no adult humans to be seen. In the control room, Day watched the Vorthak move through his station on security cameras. They were following exactly the path he wanted them to follow. Every step took them further from their ships and deeper into his trap. He pressed a button, and the lights in one corridor dimmed to almost nothing. On his screen, he watched 2 Vorthak hunters pause, confused by the darkness. Their eyes were good, but not perfect. Another button, and the gravity in that section increased by 50%. The hunters stumbled, suddenly much heavier than they expected. One fell to his knees, struggling to stand. "What is happening?" the fallen hunter called to his companion. Before the other hunter could answer, a maintenance door opened in the wall. A small cleaning robot rolled out, but it had been modified. Instead of brushes, it carried 2 mining lasers. The robot fired, once, twice, and both hunters fell silent. Kilthara heard the commotion through his communicator. "Grackmore, report," he demanded. Only static answered him. "Something is wrong," said Velkar, one of his experienced hunters. "This is not how prey behaves," Kilthera growled low in his throat. In 30 years of hunting, he had never lost hunters to prey. Prey did not set traps. Prey did not fight back with intelligence and planning. Prey ran and hid and died. "Continue." "The hunt," he ordered. "Find the offspring. Once we have the young ones, the adults will surrender." But even as he said it, Kilthera felt something he had never experienced before. For the first time in his life, the great hunter was beginning to feel like the hunted. From the nursery section of the station came a sound that made all the remaining Vorthak pause. It was soft and melodic, unlike anything in their experience. A human voice singing something gentle and strange. The sound echoed through the ventilation systems, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. It was not afraid. It was not a call for help. It was calm and peaceful, as if the singer had no idea that death was coming for them. Kilthera felt his hunting instincts sharpen. The song was coming from where the offspring were. Finally, they had found their real target. He signaled his remaining hunters to follow the sound. They moved toward the nursery section, unaware that with each step, Kim Day was watching them on his cameras. The human engineer's face showed no fear, only cold calculation. His wife and daughter were safe. The other children were safe, and the Vorthak hunters were walking exactly where he wanted them to go. The song continued, sweet and innocent in the dark corridors of the space station. But Kilthara would soon learn that not all songs were what they seemed, and not all hunters were the ones doing the hunting. Kilthara stood at a junction where 3 corridors met. The singing was still echoing through the station, but it seemed to come from multiple directions now. His hunting pack had already lost 2 members, and the silence from his communicator told him something was very wrong. "We split here," he decided. "Belkar, take 5 hunters and search the mining levels. I will take the rest toward the source of that singing." Belkar nodded. He was an experienced hunter, older than Kilthara and just as deadly. "If this is a trap, we should leave now. Prey that fights back is dangerous prey." "No!" Kilthara snarled. "We are Vorthak. We do not run from soft humans. Find the adults and kill them. I will take the offspring." The 2 groups separated. Velkar led his hunters down toward the mining section, while Kilthara followed the singing toward the station's core. Neither group knew that Kim Day was watching every step they took. In his control room, Day had multiple screens showing different parts of the station. His fingers moved across the controls like a musician playing an instrument. Each button controlled something different: lights, gravity, airflow, automated systems. The station was his weapon, and he knew exactly how to use it. 6 targets moving to mining level 3, he said quietly into his communicator. "Jin-Sam, are your modifications ready?" In another part of the station, Jin-Sam sat surrounded by computer screens and robot parts. He was thin and young, but his eyes were sharp with intelligence. "All systems modified and ready. Send them to me." Velkar and his hunters entered the mining section. The corridors here were wider, built for moving heavy equipment. Large machines sat silent in the darkness. The air smelled of metal and stone dust. "Search every room," Velkar ordered. "The humans must be hiding somewhere." The hunters spread out. 2 went left, 2 went right, and 2 continued straight ahead with Velkar. They had no idea that every step they took was being planned for them. The first pair of hunters entered a storage room filled with mining equipment. As soon as they stepped inside, the door sealed behind them with a heavy clang. Emergency lights flashed red, and a computerized voice began speaking. "Decompression sequence initiated. Evacuate immediately." The hunters threw themselves at the door, but it would not open. Their claws scraped against the metal, leaving deep scratches but no real damage. The air in the room began to thin. "Captain," one of them called into his communicator. "We are trapped," but their signal did not reach Velkar. Jin-Sam had modified the station's communication system. Each group of hunters was now isolated, unable to call for help. The second pair of hunters found themselves in a maze of corridors that seemed to change. They walked straight ahead but somehow ended up back where they started. Emergency bulkheads dropped at random moments, blocking their path. When they tried to backtrack, new walls had appeared. "This is not possible," one hunter growled. "Corridors do not move." But they were wrong. The station's modular design allowed sections to be reconfigured for maintenance. Kim Day was using this feature to turn the mining level into a constantly shifting puzzle. The hunters grew more confused and angry with each dead end they encountered. Meanwhile, Velkar and his remaining hunter found the main mining chamber. It was a huge open space carved out of the asteroid. Massive drilling equipment hung from the ceiling like sleeping giants. The room was dark except for small emergency lights. "Something moves," Velkar's companion whispered. They were right. In the shadows between the machines, shapes were moving. But these were not humans. They were mining robots, modified with new programming. Instead of drilling rock, they had been given a different target. The robots rolled out of the darkness, on treaded wheels. Their drilling arms had been replaced with cutting lasers and welding torches. There were dozens of them, all controlled by Jin Sam from his hidden command post. Velkar raised his rifle and fired. The shot hit one robot and destroyed it in a shower of sparks. But 3 more took its place. He fired again and again, but for every robot he destroyed, 2 more appeared. "Run," he shouted to his companion. They turned to flee, but the door they had entered through was sealed. Other doors around the chamber began opening and more robots poured in. These ones were different. Larger cargo-moving machines with crushing claws instead of precision tools. In his control room, Kim Day watched the battle on his screens. He felt no joy in what he was doing. These were living beings, even if they were here to kill his people. But his daughter's face was in his mind, and his wife's safety, and all the other families on the station. He would do whatever was necessary to protect them. While the mining level descended into chaos, Kilthara's group continued toward the source of the singing. They moved through residential corridors lined with family quarters. Children's drawings were stuck to some doors. Toys lay abandoned in hallways. The singing grew louder as they advanced. It was definitely coming from the nursery section now. Kilthara could smell young humans more strongly than ever. His hunting instincts told him they were close to their prize. But something else bothered him. The song was too calm, too peaceful. When Vorthak approached their prey, they usually heard crying or screaming. Fear had a specific sound and smell. This human showed no fear at all. "Captain," one of his hunters said nervously, "where are all the adults? We have seen no mature humans since we boarded." Kilthara had been wondering the same thing. Adult humans should be defending their offspring. They should be fighting desperately, even hopelessly, to protect their young. Instead, the station seemed almost empty except for the singing voice ahead. Behind them, the sounds of battle from the mining level had stopped. No more laser fire, no more shouting. The silence was complete. "Velkar," Kilthara called into his communicator, "report your status." No answer came back, just static and emptiness. For the first time in his hunting career, Kilthara felt something that might have been fear. Not fear of death. Vorthak warriors did not fear dying in battle. This was something else. The fear of not understanding what was happening. The fear that maybe, just maybe, they were not the hunters in this situation. The singing continued, sweet and gentle in the darkness ahead. But now it sounded less like innocence and more like a lure, like bait in a trap that was much larger and more complex than any Vorthak mind had imagined. Kim Day checked his screens one more time. The mining level was secure. Velkar's group had been dealt with. Now it was time for the final phase of Protocol Shepherd, the phase where the remaining hunters would learn what humans really did when their children were threatened. The singing voice grew stronger as Kilthara and his remaining hunters moved deeper into the residential section. There were only 4 of them left now, including himself. The others had vanished into the station's depths, without a trace. Each empty corridor they passed felt more like a mouth waiting to swallow them. The voice belonged to a human male. It sang in the human language, words that meant nothing to Vorthak ears, but the melody was strange and haunting. There was something about it that made Kilthera's predatory instincts feel confused. The song was not afraid. It was protective, gentle, like something a parent might sing to calm their young. Li Min sat in the center of the nursery room, surrounded by 7 small children. His back was against the wall, and his arms were wrapped around his 4-year-old son Li Jun. His 6-year-old daughter Li Na sat pressed against his side. The other children, Choi Bin, Yoon Soo, Han Sol, Park In, and Kim So, formed a small circle around him. They were all scared. How could they not be? Even through the thick walls of the nursery, they could hear strange sounds echoing through the station. Grinding metal, distant explosions, the hum of machinery working in ways it was not designed for. But they were not crying or screaming because Li Min was singing to them. The song was old, something his grandmother had taught him when he was young. It told the story of a mother bear who protected her cubs through a long, cold winter. When wolves came to their den, the mother bear did not run. She did not hide. She stood between her children and danger, no matter how large the wolf pack was. The mother bear was strong, Min sang softly. She was brave and wise. When the wolves came howling, she stood up tall. She showed her claws and teeth. She told the wolves that they could not pass. Little Kim So, who was only 3 years old, looked up at him with wide eyes. "Did the wolves go away?" she whispered. Min smiled and stroked her hair. The wolves learned that some things are more dangerous than they are. A parent protecting their children is the most dangerous thing in all the world. He continued singing, his voice steady and calm, but inside his heart was racing. The evacuation alarm had sounded 30 minutes ago, and everyone else should have reached the safe rooms by now. The nursery section had malfunctioned during the evacuation, and the blast doors would not open. He could have tried to move the children through the corridors, but his communication with Kim Dae had been clear. The station was now a battlefield, and the corridors were not safe. So he had made the choice that any parent would make. He stayed with the children and sang to keep them calm, while other adults handled the danger. He trusted his friends and neighbors to protect them all. What Min did not know was that the nursery's malfunction was not an accident. Kim Dae had sealed this section deliberately, but not to trap them. The children had been evacuated hours ago through a hidden maintenance shaft that connected to the station's core. These 7 little ones he held were not the real children at all. They were holograms, projected by advanced systems that Jin Sam had installed. They looked real, felt real, even smelled real to anyone not touching them directly. The singing voice was also a projection, recorded from Min earlier and now playing through hidden speakers. But Min himself was not here at all. He was safe in the core with the real children, probably telling them the same story about the brave mother bear. Kilthera reached the nursery section. The corridors here were different from the rest of the station. Warmer, with softer lighting, and pictures on the walls. Drawings made by small hands, showing families and stars and simple happy things. The smell of young humans was very strong now. "They are close," whispered Thekran, one of his hunters. "I can smell at least 6 offspring." Kilthera nodded. Finally, they would have their prize. Once they held human young as hostages, the adult humans would have to surrender. It was the oldest hunting strategy in the galaxy. Threaten the children, and parents became helpless with fear. The singing was coming from behind a heavy door marked with human symbols. Pictures of small humans playing were painted on the walls around it. This was definitely where the offspring were kept. "Prepare for breach," Kilthera ordered. "Remember, take the young ones alive. They are no use to us dead." His hunters readied their weapons. One of them, Zorak, carried a special net designed for capturing small prey without harming them. Another had a sleep gas dispenser that would make the children unconscious but not damage them. Kilthera placed his clawed hand on the door control. It was not locked. Humans probably thought their children were safe here. How wrong they were. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside the nursery, Li Min's voice continued singing. The children sat around him in their small circle, looking up at him with trusting eyes. Soft toys were scattered around the room. A mobile hung from the ceiling, showing little spaceships and planets. Everything was peaceful and innocent. Kilthera stepped inside, his rifle ready. Behind him came his 3 remaining hunters. They spread out to surround the group in the center of the room. "Human," Kilthera said in the common galactic language, "you will come with us. The offspring will not be harmed if you cooperate." Li Min looked up at the Vorthak warriors. His face showed no surprise, no fear. He simply continued singing his gentle song about the mother bear who protected her cubs. "The wolves thought they were strong," he sang. "They thought they were smart. But the mother bear knew something they did not know. She was not alone in the forest." Kilthera felt a chill run down his spine. Something was wrong with this human's reaction. Prey was supposed to beg and cry when cornered. This one acted like he was not afraid at all. "Stop singing," Kilthera commanded. "Gather the offspring. You are coming with us." Min smiled and sang louder. The mother bear called to her friends. The other bears heard her voice. They came running through the trees. The wolves were surrounded. That was when Kilthera realized the truth. The singing was not just coming from this room. It was echoing from speakers throughout the nursery section. The same voice, the same song, but from multiple sources, like a recording being played. He looked more carefully at the human and the children. They sat very still, almost too still, and now that he concentrated, he could see the slight shimmer in the air around them that suggested holographic projection. "It is not real," he said quietly. "None of this is real." Behind him, his hunters were checking the room with their scanners. No life signs except their own, no heat signatures, no actual smell of living humans, just the artificial scent produced by the station's atmospheric systems. They had been chasing ghosts. But if the offspring were not here, where were they? And where were the adult humans who should have been defending this place? Kilthera looked around the empty nursery room and felt the hunting ground shift beneath his feet. For the first time in his life, the great predator realized he might not be the one doing the hunting. The song continued from hidden speakers, telling the story of a mother bear whose friends came to help her fight the wolves. And somewhere in the station's depths, Kilthera was beginning to understand that the humans had friends too. Friends who had been preparing for this hunt long before the Vorthak arrived. Kilthera stared at the empty nursery room. His 3 remaining hunters searched every corner, but found nothing real. The holographic children had disappeared when they tried to touch them. The singing had stopped. Only silence remained, heavy and threatening. "Captain," Tekran said nervously, "if the offspring are not here, where are they?" Kilthera did not answer. He was studying the room more carefully now, using his trained hunter's eyes. The toys scattered on the floor were not random. They formed patterns, creating clear lines of sight from the doorway to specific corners. The furniture had been moved too, chairs and tables positioned to block certain areas while leaving others open. This room had been prepared, arranged, set up like a stage where a play would be performed. And they had been the audience, walking right into their assigned seats. "We have been led here," he said quietly. "This entire section is a trap." As if responding to his words, the lights in the room dimmed to a soft red glow. Emergency lighting, the kind used during dangerous situations. Through the walls came a new sound, the hum of machinery activating throughout the station. Cho Wan stepped out from behind a hidden panel in the wall. He was tall for a human, with gray hair and steady hands that held a plasma rifle. His uniform showed that he had been a soldier once before becoming security chief for this mining station. "You are correct," Cho Wan said in the common language. "This is a trap. You walked into it perfectly." Behind him came 2 more humans. Jin Sam emerged from a maintenance hatch in the ceiling, carrying a modified control tablet that seemed to be connected to the station's computer systems. Yuhan appeared through what had looked like a solid wall but was really a hidden doorway, holding tools that had been changed into weapons. Kilthera raised his rifle, but Cho Wan was already aiming at him. "I would not do that," the human said. "Call me My friends have been preparing for this moment. Every weapon you carry, every piece of equipment your people brought aboard, we know about all of it. We have been watching you since before you entered our space. The Vorthak captain's mind raced. How was this possible? Humans were supposed to be weak and defenseless. They were prey animals that barely understood space travel. They did not set elaborate traps or plan complex ambushes. Where are the offspring? Kilthera demanded. What have you done with them? Chowan smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The children? They are safe. They have been safe since long before you arrived. Did you really think we would leave them unprotected when we knew predators were coming? Jin Sam stepped forward, his tablet showing readings that Kilthera could not understand. We detected your ships 3 days ago, he said. Long-range sensors picked up your approach vector. We have been tracking Vorthak hunting patterns for months, learning how you think and how you operate. Impossible, snarled Thekron. Humans do not have that technology. You are right, Yuhan said. We did not have it, so we built it. Humans are very good at building things when their children are threatened. The tablet in Jin Sam's hands chimed softly. He looked at the display and nodded to his companions. All sections are secure. The mining level situation is complete. We are ready for the final phase. Kilthara felt something he had never experienced before, the complete loss of control over a hunt. What final phase? He asked. Instead of answering, Cho Wan activated a communication device. Commander Song, this is security. The remaining targets are in position. A woman's voice answered through the speakers. It was calm and confident with the tone of someone who had been in charge of dangerous situations before. Understood, Cho Wan. Bring them to the observation deck. It is time they learned what they were really hunting. The 3 humans moved with practiced coordination. Yuhan sealed the exits from the nursery while Jin Sam used his tablet to control unseen systems throughout the station. Cho Wan kept his weapon trained on the Vorthak hunters but did not fire. You will come with us, Cho Wan said. Your weapons will be left here. Kilthara considered fighting. His hunters were trained killers, capable of destroying these 3 humans even without their guns. But something in the humans' behavior stopped him. They were not afraid. They should have been terrified, facing creatures that could tear them apart with bare claws. Instead, they acted like they were in complete control. Where are you taking us? He asked. To meet someone who wants to talk to you, Jin Sam said. Someone who has been planning this conversation for a very long time. Reluctantly, Kilthara and his hunters dropped their weapons. The humans led them out of the nursery and through corridors that seemed different now. The walls showed signs of modification, hidden panels, new equipment, sensors that had not been there during the original hunt. As they walked, Yuhan explained what they were seeing. We spent 6 months preparing this station for your arrival. Every corridor has been modified. Every room has been turned into a potential trap. The entire structure is now a weapon designed to protect our people. But why? Thekron asked. Why go to such effort for mere offspring? The 3 humans looked at each other, and Cho Wan laughed. It was not a happy sound. You really do not understand humans at all, do you? You think our children are just another resource to be captured and traded. They reached an elevator that carried them toward the station's core. As they rose through the levels, Jin Sam's tablet showed views of different sections. The mining areas where Velkar's hunters had been stopped. The corridors where the first hunters had disappeared. The nursery they had just left. Every death that happened today was unnecessary, Cho Wan said quietly. We tried to make this as non-violent as possible. But your people would not stop hunting our children. The elevator doors opened onto an observation deck with large windows showing the space around the station. Here, finally, they met the person who had been coordinating everything. Song Ra stood with her back to them, looking out at the stars. She was smaller than the male humans, but when she turned around, her eyes held an intelligence and determination that made even Kilthara step back. This was not prey. This was something much more dangerous. Welcome to our home, she said calmly. I hope you are beginning to understand your mistake. Behind her, through the observation windows, Kilthara could see something that made his blood Run cold. Other ships were approaching the station, human ships arriving in response to signals that had been sent hours ago, but these were not rescue vessels. They were warships, armed and ready for battle, and all of them had one thing painted on their hulls in bright letters: Child Protection Force. Song-Ra smiled as she saw understanding dawn in the Vorthak captain's eyes. "Did you think you were hunting isolated prey?" she asked. "You were. Not hunting individuals, Captain. You were hunting parents, and parents never hunt alone." Song-Ra moved to the observation deck's central console. Her fingers danced across the controls, bringing up displays that showed the full scope of what had happened on the station. Kilthara watched in growing disbelief as the truth unfolded before his eyes. 6 months ago, Song-Ra began, we intercepted communications about Vorthak hunting patterns. Your people are not as careful with their transmissions as they think. We learned that you target colonies with children, using our offspring as leverage to break adult resistance. The displays showed star charts with marked attack routes. Dozens of human settlements had been raided over the past 2 years. In every case, the pattern was the same. Find the children, threaten them, watch the adults surrender. So we decided to give you exactly what you expected to find, Song-Ra continued. A mining station with families, children in a nursery, adults who would panic and make mistakes when their young were threatened. Kilthara felt his worldview cracking. The evacuation was planned. Every detail, Song-Ra confirmed. The moment our sensors detected your ships, the real evacuation began. Every child on this station was moved to the core section through hidden maintenance tunnels. They have been safe in a heavily shielded area since before you even boarded. Jin Sam's tablet displayed a new image. A large, comfortable room deep in the station's heart. 7 children sat with Kang Gi, a large, gentle-looking man who was reading them a story. The room was filled with toys, books, and everything needed to keep young minds calm and entertained. Kang Gi is former military, Cho Wan explained. Specialized in defensive operations. The core section where the children are hidden has armor, plating that could stop a battleship's weapons. There is enough food, water, and air for 3 weeks. It is the safest place in this entire system. Tekaran stared at the image of the children. They looked happy and relaxed. One little girl was laughing at something in the story. A boy was playing with toy spaceships. None of them showed any sign of fear or distress. They do not even know. We are here, he said quietly. Exactly, Song-Ra replied. While you were chasing holograms and recordings, the real children were completely protected. The singing you heard was recorded hours before your arrival. Li Min is down there with them now, keeping them entertained while we handle the actual threat. The Vorthak captain felt something break inside his mind. Everything he understood about hunting, about prey behavior, about human weakness, all of it was wrong. But your own people died fighting us. Why sacrifice adults for offspring? Song-Ra's expression grew cold. No one died, Captain. Check your records carefully. Kilthara thought back through the hunt. His pack members had been separated, isolated, and then silence. He had assumed they were dead because that was how combat worked. You fought, you killed, or were killed. Your hunters are alive, Cho Wan said, unconscious and restrained but alive. We used sleep gases, containment fields, and non-lethal weapons. Every Vorthak who entered this station is still breathing. Jin Sam's tablet showed new images, holding cells where Vorthak hunters lay unconscious, but clearly alive. Medical scanners showed their vital signs, all stable and healthy. But I heard weapons fire, Kilthara protested. Explosions, combat sounds. Sound effects and light shows, Yuhan explained. We needed you to believe your pack was being destroyed, so you would continue following our planned route. Every sound you heard was carefully designed to guide your behavior. Song-Ra walked to the observation windows. Outside, more human ships were arriving. Not just warships now, but transports and hospital vessels. An entire fleet responding to the situation. The real lesson here, Captain, is not about human technology or tactics, she said. It is about human nature. You studied our species, but you only looked at our weaknesses. You saw that we love our children and assumed that made us vulnerable. She turned back to face the Vorthak hunters. You never considered that love might make us more dangerous, not less. A parent protecting their young is not weak prey. They are the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. Bei Young's voice came through the communication system. Commander Song, we have incoming transmissions from 14 human colonies. They want to know if we need assistance. Tell them the situation is contained, Song Ra replied. But thank them for the offer, and make sure they all have copies of the defense protocols we used here. Kilthera understood now. This entire operation had been designed not just to stop one hunting pack, but to send a message to every Vorthak in space. The other human colonies were learning these same tactics. What had happened here would happen again, wherever Vorthak hunters tried to threaten human children. You are changing the rules of the hunt, he said. We are ending the hunt, Song Ra corrected. At least the hunt for our species. You can continue preying on others if you choose, but humans are no longer your victims. Ryu Jin appeared on the communication screen. He was in the mining section, surrounded by equipment that had been converted for this operation. Commander, all systems are ready for the final demonstration. Should we proceed? Song Ra looked at Kilthera. Would you like to see what we can really do when our children are threatened, Captain? This station is just one mining facility on the edge of human space. We are not a military installation. We are not warriors. We are just parents and workers who wanted to protect our families. She nodded to Ryu Jin. Proceed with the demonstration. Through the observation windows, Kilthera watched as the asteroid around them began to move. Mining charges that had been placed months ago activated in a carefully controlled sequence. The entire asteroid started to shift and reconfigure, turning the mining station into something else entirely. Weapons platforms emerged from hidden bays. Shield generators came online, creating a protective barrier around the station. Communication. Arrays extended into space, linking with the approaching human fleet. In minutes, the simple mining facility had transformed into a fortress capable of defending an entire system. Every human settlement now has these capabilities, Song Ra said calmly. Every colony, every outpost, every place where human children live. We have been preparing for months, sharing technology and tactics across our entire species. She activated another display, showing a map of human space. Hundreds of settlements were marked with green lights indicating they were now protected by similar defensive systems. You came here hunting prey, Song Ra told Kilthera. Instead, you found gardeners who had grown teeth. The Vorthak captain looked out at the human fleet surrounding them. Ships designed for war, crewed by people who had spent months preparing for this moment. All of it mobilized not for conquest or glory, but simply to protect children. For the first time in his long hunting career, Kilthera began to understand what it meant to face something more dangerous than any predator. He was facing parents who had had time to plan. Song Ra stood before the massive view screen that dominated the observation deck. The human fleet had grown to over 30 ships, all positioned in perfect defensive formation around the converted mining station. Each vessel bore the same symbol, a simple image of an adult hand protecting a smaller one. Captain Kilthera, she said without turning around. Do you know what makes humans different from every other species you have hunted? The Vorthak captain remained silent. His 3 surviving hunters stood behind him, their earlier confidence completely shattered. Everything they had believed about prey and predators had been turned upside down in the space of a few hours. Other species fight to survive, Song Ra continued. They protect their territory, their resources, their individual lives, but humans fight for something else entirely. We fight for the future. She activated a new display that showed images from across human space. Colonies on distant worlds, space stations orbiting alien stars, generation ships traveling between systems. In every image, children could be seen, playing, learning, growing up among the stars. Every human child represents possibilities we cannot even imagine yet, Song Ra said. They might become scientists who discover new worlds, artists who create beauty we have never seen, or leaders who guide our species to achievements we cannot dream of. When you threaten our children, you are not just threatening individuals. You are threatening the entire future of human civilization. Kim Dae's voice came through the communication system. Commander, all systems are secure. The prisoners are ready for transfer to Medical Bay for full health assessment. Understood, Day, Song-Ra replied. Make sure they receive proper care. No one leaves this station injured or mistreated. Kilthera felt confused by this treatment. In Vorthak culture, captured enemies were either killed quickly or used as resources. They were not given medical care or treated with respect. Why do you heal us? He asked. We came here to take your offspring, to sell them to fighting pits and slave markets. We are your enemies. Song-Ra finally turned to face him. Her expression was sad but not angry. Because that is what humans do, Captain. We protect life, even the lives of those who would harm us. It is not weakness. It is strength. The strength to remain human even when facing monsters. Bei Young appeared on another communication screen. Commander, I have established contact with the Vorthak home fleet. They are requesting the return of their hunting pack. Tell them their hunters are alive and will be returned unharmed, Song-Ra said. But also tell them this. Any future attempts to hunt human children will be met with the full force of our united colonies. We are no longer scattered prey. We are a unified species and we protect our own. She gestured to the fleet outside the windows. Those ships came from 14 different human settlements. They responded to our call for help within hours, ready to fight and die to protect children they had never met. That is what you were really hunting, Captain. Not individuals, but an entire species that has learned to work together. Jin Sam entered the observation deck, carrying a small device that looked like a recording unit. Commander, the data packet is ready. Full documentation of our defensive protocols, tactical innovations, and the modifications we made to convert civilian infrastructure into military assets. Song-Ra took the device and handed it to Kilthera. This contains everything we used to defeat your hunting pack. Take it back to your people. Study it. Learn from it. The Vorthak captain stared at the device in confusion. You are giving us your military secrets? Why? Because knowledge shared freely is more powerful than knowledge hoarded in secret, Song-Ra explained. Other species will face Vorthak hunters in the future. If they learn our methods, they can protect their own children. And perhaps eventually, your people will understand that there are better ways to live than by hunting the innocent. Yuhan's voice came through the speakers. Commander, the transport ship is ready to return the prisoners to their fleet. Medical scans show all Vorthak hunters are in good health and ready for transfer. Song-Ra nodded. Proceed with the transfer. Captain Kilthera, you and your hunters will be returned to your people immediately. You will not be harmed, imprisoned, or punished beyond the knowledge that your hunt failed completely. As they prepared to leave, Kilthera looked once more at the transformed mining station. Hidden weapons had withdrawn back into concealment. The shields had powered down. The facility was returning to its peaceful appearance, just a place where families lived and worked among the stars. One question, he said to Song-Ra. If we had succeeded in taking hostages, if we had captured real children, what would you have done? Song-Ra's expression became very serious. Then you would have learned why humans conquered half the galaxy before we learned to be peaceful. You would have discovered that our mercy has limits, and those limits are drawn around our children. She gestured to the fleet outside. Every ship out there carries weapons that could destroy your homeworld. Every captain commanding those vessels is a parent who would use those weapons without hesitation if human children were harmed. We choose to be peaceful, Captain. We are not required to be. The transport arrived to carry the Vorthak hunters back to their fleet. As they boarded, Cho Wan handed each of them a small package. Food for the journey, he explained. Human food. Try it. You might discover that civilized meals taste better than stolen prey. Kilthera was the last to board the transport. He paused at the airlock and looked back at Song-Ra. Your species is very strange, he said. You could have killed us easily, but you chose not to. You could have kept your defensive secrets, but you shared them freely. You could have been cruel to prisoners, but you showed kindness instead. That is what makes us human, Song-Ra replied. And that is why our children will inherit the stars. As the transport carried the defeated hunters back to their fleet, Kilthera sat in silence, thinking about everything he had witnessed. His pack had been outmaneuvered, outthought, and completely defeated by people who refused to hate their enemies. When he returned to the Vorthak home fleet, he would have to report the failure of their hunt. But more than that, he would have to explain that humans were no longer prey. They had become something else entirely. Gardeners who had grown teeth, protectors who planned their defenses like artists creating masterpieces. Back on the mining station, Song Ra watched the Vorthak ships depart. Around her, the human fleet began to disperse, returning to their own colonies and families. But the communication networks remained active, linking every human settlement in a web of mutual protection. "Commander," Bei Young said, message coming in from the core section. "The children are asking if they can come out and play now." Song Ra smiled, the first genuine smile she had shown all day. "Tell them the danger is over. Tell them they can play wherever they want, and tell them their parents love them very much." The deep core of the station. 7 children ran laughing through corridors toward the elevators that would take them home to their families. They had no idea that a battle had been fought for their future. They only knew that their parents had kept them safe, as parents always did. And somewhere in space, a Vorthak hunting captain listened to a recording he had made of a human lullaby, trying to understand how a song about protection could be more terrifying than any war cry he had ever heard. The predator had finally learned the difference between hunting prey and threatening a parent.